Welcome to Self-Discovery Radio. The discovery of self is but a show away. With over 1,800 shows and growing, we bring you those liberating stories that help you on your own life's journey from every single topic you can think of. The only common denominator is authenticity and living in your meaningful purpose. Come and read our new ebook, plus see our discovery store and what wonderful tools we have for you. Do enjoy our shows and don't forget to share. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Positive Vibrations Roundtable. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my repeat guests are Kimberly Brown and Christina Hill, along with her guardian angel, Othello. Today we're going to be talking about what are the spiritual masters, the gurus, the oracles. How do you become a master? Are you meant to be a master? Are you meant to be a person that leads others down this divine path? Or is it just a question of mastering your own life, finding the master within yourself, your guiding master that's there? Also kind of being wary of those with the neon sign saying they are the master and they'll lead you to the heaven land. It's taking ownership of our own lives, our own path, our own beautiful divine spirit, but tapping into the masters maybe that have gone beyond, and how we listen to them and be guided by them. But most importantly is how to recognize it, how to tap into it, and how to tap into the mastery of life, of living, of this beautiful divine life that we've been given, and all its wonders and wonderfulness. No, we're not in La La Land. We completely understand there's a whole load of stuff going on out there in the world that is just horrific. But unless we feed the beauty, the love, and the possibilities, all we're ever going to be doing is living in the fear. And that fear gives control to those that like to keep us in fear. So let's step into our own mastery, our own beautiful divine love, and find out what it is that we can do to empower our own lives and the lives of those around us. Kimberly formerly was a nun. She's done a wonderful journey and complete redirect on her journey, of spiritual journey, to embrace and light up everybody's life that she touches. This is her fourth show with us, and a delight to have her back. Christina is kind of newer to the game, where Othello came to her some years ago in a meditation and speaks through her to guide those people that are in transition and crossing that path. And both of them truly are utterly are divine spirits here to serve the world, to serve us into embracing that light and that love and all those possibilities that we can both have. So welcome back to the show, Kimberly and Christina.
So great to be with you, Sarah. Thank you. Really looking forward to this deep, scintillating conversation. Kimberly here.
Thank you. Thank you both, Sarah and Kimberly. What a joy and what a magnificent introduction. I just see this as an opportunity for opening and for those listening to just kind of breathe it all in and let the air out and open the door really for our own natural guru to, emerge naturally.
Exactly. And no, folks, you don't have to get down cross-legged on. We're going hum-ha. It can be a guru in a different way. So, Kimberly, I'm going to start with you. I really encourage other people to go back and listen to all of your shows because they're all very diverse and different. And they tell your personal story as well as other roundtables that you've done with other people. But for this show, I'd like you both just to give a little synopsis of your journey. And I'll start with you, Kimberly.
Yes. So I have, from a very young age, experienced Source, the ineffable Spirit, God, as lover. And it resulted in a love affair that exploded into a lot of delightful, unitive experiences, mystical experiences that I would call them, which eventually led me to want to be in a monastery so that I could throw myself into the arms of the beloved. And I had the joy of being a Carmelite, living in silence and chanting and meditating for 10.5 years. And then love drew me forward in a new turn on the same path, to be that love with others, to be a facilitator and a friend that they might experience this wellspring within the very center of their being and be able to embody it right where they're at, in the life they've chosen.
Beautiful. And that's the point, isn't it? It's a lot of people think that you have to be You know, that none or something else, and really when it comes down to it, it's how you live that godly presence in your everyday life. Christina, a little bit about you.
Well, I came from also an early age, just with many gifts, spiritual gifts, you might call them. And I say that with quotations because I think everyone has this, the ability to see. I was able to see, perceive, feel beings, entities that were either in transition or had already crossed over. But of course, a closet psychic and had to very much cloak and hide my gifts. And then, my road has been one of shadow and darkness, addiction, and just battling demons, just dragons and demons, and really trying to come to a place where I could master my own mind. And so through that journey, I had to learn my lessons through pain. So I came to kind of the pinnacle of that, and that was in 2015, and I had just what I could only describe it best as just saying an awakening, but I know this word tends to get used a lot, but an awakening where I met Athela, and Athela came to me and said, look, you've chosen this, here I am, this is who I am, this is who you are, and you're going to just be a vessel, and I'm going to work through you, and we're gonna do some good healing on the planet, and I'm going to strengthen up your gifts. We're going to tone them up, kind of like endurance, physical fitness for channeling. And then she taught me step by step how to channel in the best way possible, and to be really a facilitator for her. And so ever since then, she's been the director, CEO of the company, the organization really that provides me with a platform to be able to share that with people around the world. And she's done amazing healing and sharing and just sitting with other individuals from all different backgrounds. So that's really how I arrived on the scene, is very much not something I planned on at all, but rather something that I just felt compelled and called to, and love arrived, and I answered that call. So,
well, as you said, not something that you chose, and that's the point, isn't it? Is that when we're ready, it's already chosen us, and the paths that it takes us down, the pain or the suffering, the turmoil, are all kind of lessons of understanding, of finding our inner courage, our inner strength, but also our inner empathy, of understanding, and then the strength to overcome by igniting with that divine spirit, and then through that, then being able to help those that are also going through pain and suffering, because you know what it is. So we don't necessarily always choose our path, it's chosen for us, but if we pay attention, we'll be able to walk that path so much more easily without battling, if we, quote, give in to it, right, Kimberly?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and my book is called, Christine, it's called Love Calls, so I know, so your language is so perfect around it. I totally agree. And what is so delightful, as I have found through experience with others and myself, is this answering is to that arising invitation that will never go away, ever. It is always calling, always gently beckoning, always inciting, always igniting. And sometimes as human beings, oftentimes, we're so heavy on the self-judgment of what we're responsible to do, what's on our shoulders, what we need to initiate in order to say yes to our path, and to rest into the experience that, there is a source and a spirit that is already sustaining me, and I'm just simply saying yes to that. Mm-hmm. I'm responding to a love that is just coming to me with so much juiciness.
Mm. And the point, love. We think, how can there be love when there's so many horrors? That is the human condition. Love is the divine condition, and it is that relationship with love that we want to have, because in love there is such truth, and such purity that that's where our peace lies. And, when we understand the turmoil is not the answer, but when we discover what the peace is, we're going to do everything we can to preserve that. So love rules in my book. Christina, I know that love is very much part of your language as well.
Absolutely. I sit, in the silence, there is love. So we often, I think in our world, the way it goes is we don't have enough opportunity, or rather, we don't give ourselves permission throughout our day enough to sit in the silence and to embrace what is already, as Kimberly says, what is already available to us. And that is love. And the silence contained within the silence is love. And
Hello?
Hello.
We've lost Christina.
Oh, she's one with the love.
You were in the middle of love there, Christina, and we loved you. Bring the love back.
Yes. Oh, bring the love back. Bring it out.
You slipped into the silence.
Yes.
We slipped into the silence. Yes, and sorry about that. I'm coming in and out. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Yes, the silence, though, embracing that silence is, I believe, it's my perception and sense of things that is embracing the love. So even just taking a pause to breathe, which we just did, to take that throughout our day is such a gift. What a gift that is. And it's just such a fast way, really the fast track to embracing love on all different levels. And as we talk about making that conscious choice to switch from the atrocities that we see in the world and what we see in the media and the news, and we make that conscious shift, I believe that we can do that with very simple things, watching the rain come down, watching our children play, and sitting with our pets. Mm-hmm. And the love it stirs and it's always there. As Kimberly pointed out, love calls. I love that title. Here we go with love again. And it's so true. And it never leaves. It never fails. It's just, it's awesome. It's pure awesomeness.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people think that, to be of service, or to connect with the divine love. Now, we're not talking about religion here. We're talking about, and it doesn't matter what faith you is. I love what the Pope says. I don't care what faith you're in as long as it's based in love and kindness. And that is the common denominator. We know that we see an awful lot of faiths out there or religions that it's all about sacrilege, being sacrificial. Either sacrificing something else or sacrificing themselves, denying themselves life, denying themselves love, because that love is only for the gods, and it's not a human condition, which I completely and utterly disagree with. And I think that God's gift to us is that love. And when we understand what that love is, we're truly now in His language. Where does this come from? Or do you think this was the kind of the human condition, the human control to control the masses by making them, that everything to do with God had to be as a servant? I'm going to hit with you on this one first, Kimberly.
Sure. Well, I tend to shy away from generalized statements as though organizations or personages are seeking to control. My counsel would be out on a deduction like that. That control happens because we come from unconscious places that love hasn't yet touched. Mm-hmm. That does, in effect, happen, but that it would be a direct intention. I err away from that. However, when I think about the divine coming into form, I believe we're the divine pulse, and that in the end, God, Spirit, Source, whatever language we use, will be all in all, and is all in all in the process. It's just a matter of we're experiencing light and light unseen, a certain concealment to the light that gratifies. And we're not understanding, how do we work with it? How do we not separate out and individuate when, in essence, we're coming from this oneness place? And we're still working out our power issues around that. So I think the notion of being of service has a limiting factor to it, but on the good end of that notion is this attempt to give context to, we are part of a greater good. We're meant to be a kenosis, an outpouring of that.
Yeah.
Where we fall short is we think then that means there's meant to be pain and suffering, that means, and the pain and suffering element isn't a meant to be part of concealment coming into light. It just happens to be part of our process because we're still unconscious. So that's how I would speak to those notions. And unfortunately, since we are so young in our evolution as a species, we still don't quite understand this notion of what it means to serve, what it means to outpour, what it means to be united in love. And we still want to make distinctions so that we can chunk it down and put it into practice.
Yeah. I know, Christina, you're champing at the bit there. Let it out, girl.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I feel
that.
it. It's like pouring out, the outpouring. I love these words too. It's first of all, I'll just say on a side note, it's so lovely when, don't you find, Kimberly and Sarah, don't you find that the language that we're able to sort of encapsulate all of this, it seems to be advancing so that we can describe a little bit better all of these concepts, that we can talk openly about it, and we're evolving on a conscious level. I do feel like we're at the beginning stages, and I know we did a show most recently about our advancement in terms of moving dimensionally, advancing from third, fourth, fifth, and what these levels mean. And of course those are concepts, right? Those are titles and labels. But we're finding, I think, now that we're able to speak to them in a language that's more clear, it's more light-filled and truthful, and it just feels good. So it feels good to have even this discussion right here. It really chimes on so many levels, hearing it and then speaking it. So I think our language is evolving with our ability to be open to all that is and our consciousness. But I have to agree with Kimberly. I think now, my sense, my perception now is that we are becoming awakened, of course, and we're moving forward. And as we do, we're moving into this fifth dimension, you might say, and then we are presented, life is presenting us with opportunities to have gurus, teachers, those who are feeling called or led. They're emerging, and with it comes the responsibility. I think responsibility is the best word here, to both show up and shine, and at the same time to be very authentic in it, and yet, to not put up the neon sign, as you said, and to give oneself into the spiritual, because there's a lot of spiritual ego. I think it's walking a very fine line between shining as who you are and being of service, if that's your conscious choice, if that's what you choose to do. Then and also that difference of deciding then that you will make yourself of service and be a leader and sort of fluff the ego in that way, inflate the ego in that way, and I don't know, it's just it's an interesting topic then. So people are we're wanting leadership as we move into fifth dimension. We become more conscious and awake, and we need support, lots of it, and yet we want and we need these authentic voices, authentic, without the ego, like absence of ego.
I think if somebody's in the fifth dimension, that the ego's already been left behind. I think that's still kind of, It's very much a third dimensional thing. The fourth, you've got people on that bridge, that fourth dimension, the awakening. They realize there's something more. They want more out of it. The conscious is awakening. The heart is awakening. That desire for love and that peace and that, kindness towards man is awakening. And I think that's where you'll see, the people, as you call the eco spirits that are out there, that are still kind of maybe still trying to steer people in the wrong way. And I don't think it's done necessarily out of maliciousness. It's still kind of they're trapped in the human side of things rather than the spiritual side of things. I think when somebody's already in that fifth dimension, they're already a master and a teacher in the pure source, because you can't be in that fifth dimension unless you are.
Yes.
Your vibration is raised to such a level. I'm going to just give a quick little example here. It's something I've used in my own practice. Take a ruler of 12 inches. I know everybody's thinking centimeters nowadays, but sorry, go with me, folks. I'm British.
Yeah, I like inches.
So you have your 6 to 12 inches that are already your fifth dimensioners. They're people that have already embraced the love and the spirit, understand, what their purpose is here, and they're already in that love, various stages of it, but already in that set of love. You have these kind of 4 to 6s that are people that are on the bridge. They're awakening. They know there's something more. They're working hard to embrace that and let go of what does not serve them. But you have those 1 to 3 piranhas. And they are the crisis junkies. They love the drama. They love I call it the CNN sensation. Fear, disaster, the end of the world, the apocalypse. They love it. They thrive on it. And they go after the 4 to 6s that have just been beautifully filled with love and hope and possibilities, and they suck them dry. And, I think this is what I'm talking about with, the neon light people where they come in, I will save you. What I'm really going to do is suck the life out of you, because that's what keeps me going. And I think this is where, when you are on that bridge and that awakening, I think a lot of being insular, kind of going into yourself, being selfish, taking that journey in and blocking people out to a point at that time is because you need to know where your own switches are, where your own buttons are, in order to know how to recognize those who are truly, sincerely there to help you. So that's my perspective of it. I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Kimberly, I'll go with you first.
So can you say the question in another language as well?
Yes. So my belief is that when you're on that awakening, is that there is a time where you really have to switch off the outside and take the journey on the inside to recognize who you are from the inside out. Because it's only when you embrace yourself from the inside out do you understand what the calling is on the outside. And we have to kind of switch off from all those other people that promise us the promised land, and look for that promised land within ourselves. It's a journey we have to make in order to get to that next stage. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and they both made sense. That's perfect. So one of the adages I love many of the more ancient tantric texts, and one of the principles or the belief, the cosmology, is as within, so without. Mm-hmm. And I find that as we are being inspired, somebody speaks a word and it touches our hearts. Some event happens in our lives and it shakes things up, maybe uncomfortably, maybe in an expansive, consoling way. All of these pieces are a way that we are resonating because we're calling it in. The very essence of our being is longing to embody spirit here in this world, which is completely from the inside out. And we get these cues from the outside, and it's true. We can halt the process or pitch our tent to something on the outside thinking that it's there. And inevitably in time, it will be destroyed. Scandal will happen. Inner loss will happen around it. Something will let us down. As a way of reminding us, that resonance, though, was because it's within me. Mm-hmm. And the light for me of becoming fully of what we are, and I tend to think that we're moving away even from the word master, because a master is a setup. It has a dualistic notion to it, because even to be a master or embody a master is in relationship to something.
Yeah.
So I think eventually that language will even fade away. And there really is only the inner awakening in which the divine is having a multiple expression. And we find that not only is everything in life our teacher, everything is bursting with this point of grace, because we ourselves are that very point of grace. So it's just meeting like to like.
Yeah.
And the more we meet like to like and allow that to arise within, the more that external construct that initially gives us a sense of security, we can trust it, we can rest into it. But as it lets us down, it is so that we discover the revealing of that formless security that we are within.
Yes.
That's how I would speak to it.
Yeah, beautifully. Christina?
I have to say overwhelming yes. And I think life speaks to that as well with a yes. So we open up to who we are. And I guess it's also a question of in everyone's experience in their journey, you can kind of gauge where you're at with all of this is how quickly, how swiftly can I return to source? I become aware that I've fallen off. Something has risen up in my experience. I'm in the upset. I'm in the swells of, I'm riding these waves, or I just feel lost. And then how quickly can I become aware and then become one again with source, or what I identify as source? So I guess that's also something that I would speak to on this is it begins within, of course, because we are connected to all that is, the mover and maker of all of life. That's us. So the more in alignment we are every second of our day, and when we fall off or when we step away from that, and I kind of liken it in colors. For me, I see a world of colors. So for me, it's shadow, or it's shades of gray, and then a return to light. And if you're someone who sees color a lot, then you can identify with that. For some, it's more visceral, and you feel it in the body. But I think the practice is just how quickly can I become upright and feel anchored in the formless, and stay in that wave, in that pulse. As Kimberly, I love this language again, that pulse. Staying in that as a lifestyle and not as a one-time, second-time event, or not when you need something, or when you're seeing in your external world things are collapsing, right? There's a collapse. And then you're going to go ahead and go on the inside. I mean, that's fine. That's how most of us arrive. We awaken in that way. But it doesn't have to be the case. You do not have to arrive to that, that conscious alignment with the formless through pain. You right. can choose. You can elect and choose consciously to remind yourself to be in alignment with all that is.
For me, I often kind of refer to things like as a symphony, and each one of us is an instrument in that orchestra. And, when we have the right music, we can be a part of that symphony, and the music that we make is crescendo. It is harmonious. It's not a question of a pitch up and a crash down. It is about an expansion and an embracement. And to be a part of that collective music, by bringing our own souls, instrument to the orchestra is where the kind of the euphoria of life is. It's where the truth and the nectar and the supreme love is gathered. And it's for a lot of people, it's like, well, how do I find my instrument? What is it? And sometimes we do have to go through the falls in life. And get up many times maybe before we realize what it is our calling, our meaningful purpose. And when you step into that calling and that purpose in truth, in trust, in love, which is of service to each other in this world. That's really when we kind of find that instrument to play, isn't it? And it comes from within. I'm just going to give a little example here right now. There's a young lady on America's Got Talent whom I've interviewed a couple of times. She's actually on air with us right now. Her name is Keshi, and she's a burn victim. 65% of her body burnt from a plane accident. And, when you see her, obviously you see the burns. But when she speaks, the inner beauty of her resonance shines out. And you see the absolute beauty of her. And then she sings. And that love and that passion and that music that saved her life comes through every note she sings. This is her instrument in the orchestra. And it's so beautiful. And, that is something that lifts us up so much, and it gives us so much hope and courage and want to be a part of it. So, this is the way I see people coming into being. And each one of you had your own journey into being what you need to be. And, as we've said, the first thing they need to do is you have to be willing to go in. The answers on the outside are only to indicate what's on the inside. But we need to find that inner instrument in order to know what role we play in life. So, again, as you said, the word master kind of becoming obsolete, a different terminology. And we talk about oneness. And it is being at one with self and the universe, isn't it? So what would be the kind of words that you would prefer people to use as an empowerment of their own mastery without being a master? Kimberly?
Oh, that's really nice. I like where that is going. That's really an interesting question, because as you both were sharing, I was reflecting, enjoying the context and the sophistication with which we're talking about this. There is something incredibly beautiful that as we lose the individual self into the ineffable self, the individual self becomes a full expression of all it's meant to be. Mm-hmm. So it's scary for us as human beings to think, oh, well, but I'm me, I will lose me. Uh-huh. And while there can be a lot of ways we build a lot of judgment and unworthiness and all this stuff that we have around it, I find there's something incredibly beautiful about wanting to not lose the individual self, because it is a gift to actually be a human being and be alive. So understanding the context that the loss is only the loss of what is the limited ideas of self. I would think embodied self, embodied fullness would be some of the language. The diversity is simply the diversity of the ineffable coming into form, of awareness, of consciousness becoming expressive, and her knowing herself. Mm-hmm. We are the desire and the fulfillment of the divine. We are the desire. That's why we've come forward, and we're its fulfillment when we live that fully. So I'm not sure I have some key phrases that would replace this idea of being a master or being a guru, other than what sounds really watery, like the full self. God fully manifests as the human being fully alive, that we're fully a human being. That's some of how I would speak to that, but you've got me reflecting. Maybe some time will come forward with something a little more succinct.
That's fine, because it's changed. Sometimes we look for these complicated wordings when really it's just quite simple, isn't it?
Yes.
Christina, what's your view on it?
I agree. Simplicity. Just think of it when you hold, and you can hold this image of yourself as a child, and here you are. You've got the dandelion in front of you, and you're blowing it, and you see the pieces of it blowing away, and that's a very vivid. I mean, you're blowing it, and you got the feelings, the breeze, and everything. I mean, that's very simple. But there's so much going on. I mean, the complexity of where those seedlings are going to land and then plant another dandelion, the whole life cycle is happening right there. So for language, I believe, again, I have to say, I think we're only able at this point, it's my understanding, I believe that we're only able to point towards that which is happening and just kind of be in awe of the beauty of, becoming this self-realized, sort of fulfilled, completely whole human being. And yeah, I think it's hard to succinctly, we look for that too as humans. We want to have this catch-all phrase, this quick go-to.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think it's more about, and I think it's designed this way too, actually. I think Universe has mapped it out great, to where we actually need to experience more often what it feels like to be connected, and then the words will come. And so we kind of look and we grasp for the words. And I love I love savoring this type of conversation and what it feels like. And I think if we can capture the feeling and the feeling that you're experiencing as a listener right now, just that, as Kimberly calls it, the resting, resting in, then as we capture that more and more in the rhythm of our daily life, comings and goings, then the language appears. It just kind of pops into our mind. I think Athela has called it light streams, things that just fly in and it'll be different, I think, for everyone. When you are really aligned with yourself, you're on your inner path and you feel very much in connection to all that is and your source, and then I think the language is really secondary. The experience becomes the primary. Oh, and listen to that!
We have somebody contributing here.
Well
put.
No, that's fine.
Actually, I'm going to hit on a word that I love very much. Hold on a second. Oh dear. Is actually the word I love is knowingness. It's the one that has always been with me. It's always part of me. It's always very much and it's for me it's coming into your gut, that divine knowledge, resonating with your heart in resonance of truth and love, going to your spirit into action, and your mind knowing what it needs to know at the time it needs to knowing it in trust and acknowledgement, and no need for validation. And I think when we're in that stream of knowingness, we know we have that channel, that divine connection, and we don't need to have an explanation of what we know. We don't need to validate it with anyone. It is simply truth. It just simply is. And when you can step into that, it's like there is your partnership with the divine. There is that wholeness of being where you have that connection. So I would probably say, instead of words of masters and things, is that we're looking for connectors. We're looking for people that can help us connect to that divine source that gives us our meaningful purpose, because they have the tools, because they've learned them along the way. And I think the best teacher are those who have been taught by life experience.
Yes, I love the image of points of light. When I think of the universe and all creation, and we find within creation there are these points of light that illumine, and it's a qualitative experience. It's not so much of there's not a hierarchy, it's not a distinction,
Mm-hmm.
It's not a this or that. It's more of a quality. And when I have met people that have magnified themselves and allowed themselves to be magnified as a point of light in a vibrancy that's strong, there's something then within me and others that will shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that shifting is always just a coming home to self. So it's not about coming to them as a point of light. It's that them being their point of light calls forward the light that may not be as magnified within me.
Yeah.
And the same on my part. As much as I am magnifying as a light, then it touches the light within others. And there may be a misunderstanding for a moment, like, oh, there's the light, and point to it. Like, actually, no, it's the pointing is only happening because the light is happening. So I like that because it's such a relational way of speaking to it, even though it's a little bit more of a either somewhat esoteric or even somewhat the physics level rather than the spiritual language. It seems to be versatile enough to speak to that. And a true guru, if we were to use that word for me, or someone that is truly a spiritual leader, is simply a light, is simply this magnification point that by nature of their being is shifting. And what I love is it's not time, space bound.
Right.
We've got personages that were these points of light in all the history of humanity that by the concentration and potency of that happening within this creative world is still shifting things. How delightful is that?
Much needed.
Yes, much needed. That it's not fixed. That it's not fixed, or
we're not
that
meant
it
to be
could
fixed,
not
are
be.
we? You know, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey. That's the point. A lot of people, I think, and I think it's the human condition, is that we're looking for this destination. Well, when I arrive, no, you're missing the point. It's about every step you take on that journey of life. That is the point. When you arrive, it's just a place that you're going to stop over for a moment before the next journey. So we really are trying to get people out of an old way of thinking, which I think was so very body-based, human-based. Yes. You know, we use the word human being. But when we look at it, we've been Homo sapiens for so long that we forgot about our beingness. And now when we address ourselves as human beings, we're embracing the being of human, that astral, that beautiful cosmic being of this human connection, this human partnership. And it's when we realize that to embrace the whole of us, you know, as you say, that light, the people that we look on as the gurus and the masters are purely people who have found that light. And through their own divine purpose have now become that disco ball that's shedding light on other people. But you've got to come to the dance, mate.
That's right. I love how you put that.
Yeah, and I love, Christina, when you were pointing to the experiential quality of that, because it's truly love. It's love that casts out the fear. Fear keeps us separate, but as we experience love, it's the one force that will really dissolve fear gently, instantaneously, dynamically.
Purely.
I'm just really, in my inner chamber of soul and heart, I feel deeply humbled when I have these moments with you, Sarah, and your guests, and Kimberly today. There's a huge wave of love in this conversation and right here, right now. And I want to just extend and kind of springboard off of what Kimberly had said about our finding our own light, and then as we sit next to others or we present to them, oh, here's my light. Look, other people, they come, they see the light. And then, immediately just pointing people back to their own inner light. I believe this is also extremely important if you are in service, if you're listening to this and you're someone who's in service, who's chosen that be, the first stop, that be your first, I think, measure of service, really, is to really direct people in your own way, whether it's out loud or in silence, but to direct your energy back to that person so that they recognize their own inner light. I think there is that sort of tendency as humans to want to latch on to the external. Yeah. Yes. And say, here's the light, I found it. And I think it's just extremely important for people in service, and I just feel really passionate to say that, is that to make sure that you are in your own journey of service, that you're making sure that you point people back to their own light. And then you find that the light grows. So sitting with others, the light only can grow. It just,
you've
it's
got
amazing.
that crack in the door there, right? It can find its way through, and doing these shows, and everybody has a journey, and some people have come from extreme darkness and loss. Some things that how can a human even bear, and yet because they found that light within them, now they are that beacon of light. They are that. To others, if they can overcome that, if they can still thrive, not just survive what they've been through and be this beacon of light to us now, surely there must be some light within me. And we talked about earlier about permission. And I think a lot of people think, well, I've sinned, or I've done wrong, or I'm a loser, I'm a this, because human beings have been telling me that all the time. And it is no, you're just a person on a journey seeking to find your instrument. The light is within you. Let someone find that light. Let someone shed that light on you so you can find that light within you. And when you've got it, let it shine. Let it shine, because that's what its purpose is to do. So I think as human beings, we've got to give ourselves permission to stop beating ourselves up, to forgive ourselves of any past choices we've made. We made them in ignorance at the time. Once you're enlightened and you know there is more, that is the time to seek the possibilities, all that can be, not all that has been.
Yes, I love all of that. That's and for those of us in service of the journeys of others, to provide the presence that those threads of guilt, shame, blame that so much of humanity holds within as this means of being just or true, those ways we hold ourselves in bondage, we can do such a great service to presence in such a way that the person not only feels held in the ways that they're propagating or doubting themselves or propagating guilt or shame, presence that, and presence that I see the value you have to offer. I see the light that you are. I see that this small little point of where you feel like you were a failure is not at all what is the case. Not in the bigger picture of things.
Just
their life's lessons along the way, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would have to add to that just that lovingness, that radical acceptance, just absolute acceptance and love, pure love, is that even when one discovers their light, that it's enough. I mean, that right there is enough. And you are doing service. Some people, once they become, as you say, Sarah, and I'm going to use that word, enlightened, then they go, okay, well, I'm just sitting here. I'm not giving anything. I'm not doing anything for anyone else. I've got to be of service, quote unquote. And I think it's important to also say that it's enough for you to just be present and to not contribute to the suffering, to not create suffering for yourself or for others, and just continue that. And that is enough. It is enough to simply discover your light and to nourish your light. And you can begin with that. And just as Kimberly pointed out, just to recognize and to feel cradled and to find that within yourself and sustain that, every day of your life. What a gift to yourself, and you're worthy of that. Worthiness of that.
And that will always, to add to it, because I know probably you both have found that there can be something that can be doubting of the worthiness or the meaning that we're living out, the meaning in life, if we just surrender into that. But that's always a dynamic state. That's the only place from which true action that is loving comes from. So if there is any action steps that are meant to come forward with a life, resting into the wholeness of I am the light, by its very nature is alchemical. And then any movement, if you will, even if it's the batting of an eyelash, is effective and accomplishes its end. So there's this incredible paradox to the beingness that is at the service of the becomingness.
Yeah, I agree with that, because, I've always been a person who's had to be in service, had to be a meaningful purpose. My life has to count for something. If I'm not contributing, I'm a waste of space. That's always been my little demons there. But my service and my measure of whether I was worthy or not was based on, other humans, of what they could get from me. And consequently, I was not giving to myself. And when I stopped and became selfish by investing in myself and learning to love myself, I then discovered truly what my calling was, and fell in love with what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And now I've stepped into my worthiness, and it is no longer a need of approval. You either get me or you don't, and that is okay. I can only speak to those that can hear me. That's all I'm required to do. For those that aren't ready to hear me, or I'm not speaking the language they wish to hear, that is also okay. And I think, you step into that, and there's an awful lot of giving yourself of that inner love, of you're not meant to be the big bright light to shine on everyone. Your light might just be a little torch just to shine on a few, and that is enough.
Oh. Wow.
And I love to think of us all as a sea of wildflowers in a field. And when I have gazed out on a field that is replete with many different types of wildflowers, and some big and some small, and all the different colors and all the different fragrances, there is a wholeness in creation right there.
Togetherness. Yeah. Yes. That unity, that cosmic, beautiful, divine community that is where we're in such awe and respect of each other, because each other brings, that different instrument or that different ingredient to the table, and we celebrate each other's, because I can't do what you're doing. Right? And it's not for me to do what you're doing, it's to embrace and celebrate what I do. And when we come together in that field, and each of us bring what we're here to do, that field becomes abundant. And that's the unity in the community and togetherness that we talk about, isn't it?
Quite. And isn't it it's just something to sit in the spaciousness of that.
Yeah.
There is so much relief in knowing that. I'm just so happy, and it just tickles me to hear you, Sarah, because your journey is it's pure as water. It's just I feel it as you're speaking it. I really do. And for you to say the little torch, and that my light, while it may not be for everyone, it may not be resonating for everyone, but that for those that it reaches, that it is a light, and I'm going to share it, and that's enough.
Yes.
What a relief. I literally, that's just, it's so much open spaciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
We are enough. We are abundant. Right. And in our abundance our cup runneth over. And all those that will receive our abundance are those that are open and ready to receive. Right? And that's all we can be. Be honest and true within ourselves. And in that truth, honesty will reach those that are ready to receive it. You can't help people until they're willing to help themselves and open up their channels to receive.
There's a beautiful story that I used in a talk. I gave a talk at a festival this weekend, and I drew upon this story from the Gospel of John. I think it's chapter 12, and it is the story of Mary Magdalene putting oil on Jesus' feet. And if you look at the text, it's really a model of each person's inner calling. She breaks into the room. She's unstoppable. She's got a liter of aromatic, expensive oil, probably sealed at the top of a glass jar. She breaks the jar open. She pours not just a little handful of the oil, but the entire liter of oil on his feet. She wipes the feet with her hair, and the fragrance fills the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that speaks to each person. Each of us has this fragrance that is meant to fill the whole room. And we're called in to live that audacity, that boldness, to be so on fire with love that we don't care what anybody thinks. We put no limits on the amount of oil we use. We think nothing of breaking open the glass jar on the side of a chair.
Right.
And we do nothing less than use all our own hair, all our own body in the process. And what that passage speaks to me, is exactly what we're talking about in this call. The question is, what happened before she entered that room? What was the yes? What was the surrender? What was the love that ignited in her that moved her into complete non-self-reflectiveness, and she was in the motion of love?
Right.
That, to me, is the answer of being our light. If we keep our questions rerouting us back to, how am I inspired? What inspires me? What's the quality of my surrender? Am I expanding? If we keep pointed back to that place, then we'll be in the motion that Mary Magdalene story is. Well, and then our fragrance will fill all of creation.
Exactly. And what's my motto here that I'm always saying, ladies? Inspiration for invitation. When you're inspired and you share that inspiration, it becomes an invitation. She was inspired and received that invitation to take action. And in that action, she then inspired others. It's not about competition. It's not about hierarchy. It's about inspiring and then inviting people in that inspiration to seek their own light, to seek their own abundance. It's all about inspiration. Inspire someone just by being you. That's all you have to be. So I know that Othello would agree with that, most certainly. And of course,
absolutely, yeah. And I have to say too, Othello, when needed and when called, I think Othello has her voice. And I open, of course, I'm a vessel for her work and her service, but I feel like very often, as I said in the beginning, we aren't giving ourselves enough permission to really let that essence really waft through the air, right? And just take it in and be present with silence. So to honor that's just a beautiful picture story that you shared there, Kimberly, and just honoring that with just some silence and just taking that in.
I mean, Kimberly, you truly understand the value of silence. And, people are wanting to saturate with things all the time, but in silence is where you hear your truth. In silence is where you make that connection. In silence is where all the answers are. And we're so busy looking for it elsewhere that we forget, be still. Be quiet. It's there.
Aho.
So well said. We do look for the words. I know in my own experience with channeling and with working with an angel, there are many times where there are no words, that it's the honoring of energy that is.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is very inspiring, very potent. It's just, and it's so radically different than what the world is currently when we walk outside, when we get into the day and we're outside, out and about. It's so different to simply be silent and to honor silence and honor energy or life or source, whatever title you choose. And I believe these opportunities, they are much needed. They're really needed, and I think that is where you can really connect very swiftly, very quickly to your own beaconing system of light. What you see or feel as light, in one of the fastest ways I believe, is to enter into that sacred silence.
Mm-hmm. Most certainly. I mean, from a person coming from 10 years of silence and obviously into the noise and hustle and bustle of life, how do you go back into your silence, Kimberly? How do you go back into that? And does it have a different meaning now?
I feel like I'm in silence wherever I am.
Beautiful.
So I came to a place at I don't even know when it happened, but I never feel like there's a returning or a cultivating, or I simply just feel like I'm walking in that matrix. So even when I was at this thousands and thousands of people event this weekend, I felt that I was there in this beautiful sea of silence where communication was happening on many levels.
Yeah.
In addition to the voice
and
the things that we identify as noise or sound. Subtle sound is much more dynamic than the audible sound that we tag labels onto.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, so I love being a part of people's process in finding out what silence is for them. But that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
So I never find any leaving of it anymore, which is really delicious.
Yes.
It feels rich all the time.
It's like an everything and a nothing all at once, isn't it? I kind of relate it to a very deep breath, and in that deep breath and that release, you are everything and nothing at once. And it's, until you've been there, it's very hard for people to comprehend, but when you have been there, then you understand. And nature, I mean, the beautiful language of nature. I always say, for me, I need to be near trees, breeze, and water. The ripple and the sound of the water, the rustle of the leaves, and the breeze that just dances around you is the energy that rejuvenates me. And it's a symphony itself, and and just feeds my silence and nourishes me because I'm tapping into that energy. And when we're looking at it, everything is energy, and you're saying in your silence, you are seeing and feeling and being the energy, and you're seeing that dance going on, and you don't really need to hear the content because you're seeing how the energy is all coming together and forming its own little symphony.
For sure. Yes.
Well, and I know in the experience of course, I have such an appreciation for Kimberly's experience. Kimberly in silence for so long, and human clock time. That's what Othello calls it. I mean, we think of the length of time that you had devoted yourself to living in that way and honoring silence. Of course, now I'm sure to you it's part of who you are. It's in you. It is you.
Right.
And so there's no falling out of that. There's no reverse on that. And I feel myself in my own journey with Othello that more and more there's this convergence. There's this entering into stillness quite rapidly, and then feeling this, and I can only sort of point to words, but I would call it peace, a peace that is incomprehensible, really. And I feel like just sharing this is that the more that we enter into our own way, into that silence, I think the more that light grows. I think they are one and the same, and through that you're able to relax, and that's where I believe we receive healing and light and solution can appear, and we leave room for all sorts of things to arrive to us. What a healthy practice that is.
Yeah. And one that humans are finding a hard time doing because they just don't know how to be still or be silent. They're constantly looking for the exterior. And I know that it's hard to initially do, but when you do, you seek that and you love that. Kimberly, I want to hit on something else with you because, from past shows that we've done, in a lot of ways, you're a little bit of a nomad, aren't you? Because you're constantly kind of going places and reaching out to the people. Have you at any time in your life, in your aloneness, which silence is a different connection, but it's aloneness from the human aspect. Do you feel compelled to keep with the travels because it's always about tapping into different energies, going to places that will serve you, that can serve others? Is there a draw to it?
Well, probably that's a complex answer. In some ways, I'm an adventurer. My personality is adventurous, so I enjoy newness, new experiences. But I think on a larger plane of that, because I love intimacy and continuity and the sense of familiarity. But I feel that the human race as a whole is my tribe. So I think my feeling of that is what results in my traveling and speaking to wide varieties of different sorts of collections of people with different beliefs and identities. And so I'm not sure why that's so, why my sense of feeling connected with the human tribe isn't showing up just in me staying local mostly. But it does seem to have, missionary is not a really great word for that because I'm not going into territory that's unknown. I'm going to territory that's more greatly known. And usually people of all these different backgrounds feel really comfortable with me. They feel comfortable to self-disclose a lot. So that's a little bit of a resonating of, okay, yes, what I'm feeling is what they're feeling too, so it's a service.
Yeah.
I think traveling will probably always be an integral part of what I do, but I'm not a gypsy soul. I'm really grounded, and so I like feeling like I've got a home or I've got something I can lean into physically as well. So part of this must be from my further formation. These past years have involved an incredible amount of travel, and it's probably forming me and teaching me something that I'm still meant to learn.
Right. I hear you on that one because I feel I'm definitely kind of a gypsy soul. I was just talking to someone the other day, I'm about to move again. But this time I don't know where to go. So I'm kind of even thinking of just putting everything in storage and house sitting. And just to kind of being free to be wherever I need to be. But the other side of me would love and longs for a sanctuary that is my space. But it keeps telling me, no, not yet. Oh, please, come on. Give me a little sanctuary.
I think I have a little, I think I could identify with both, Kimberly and Sarah, with both sides of that as well. It's like the gypsy spirit, right? The wanting to do the free form dance, the free flow dance. Yes. And that's that in of itself. There's a freshness to that. Othello said, pack your bags, get ready. We're going on a Latin American tour, and I'm going. Are you serious? Really? And so here we are, and we just did. We've not been here, but we're in the Yucatan, by the way, now. So that I know you all can't see me. I have quite a tan now coming from Seattle, of course. So. That's a long journey and very hot as well. The climate here is quite different and very tropical. But she had said, when you're expanding and you're on, you've said yes to this quote unquote job. And so we're going now where there's need and we're going to be meeting and touching people who really not only needing this, wanting this, but also just you can be in that energy, being close to such things such as pyramids, and where there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of people who in their heart center, in the heart space, they're opening up, and it's kind of like, the flower, the petals are opening up, and so as you travel, just be aware that, you're going to be touched by and touching towards that energy, and just stay open to what is and how it unfolds. And so we've been here 3 weeks now and just did our first live TV appearance And I had some real help, a heap full of help from Athela in speaking Spanish throughout this interview. And it was quite something to channel in a different language and to be, very present. There again, we talk about the presence and just to hold the light, gently cradle the light, and then for those who seek and who wish to touch that, to be available for that. And I think that's such a gift. And the traveling, I really identify with what you're sharing, and there's a freshness. Of course, for me, having water and ocean has always been something. It's like, the water, it's an anchoring mechanism, and it's a beautiful conduit. Totally, conduit. And that's so pure and cleansing.
Well, we know that energy doesn't stay still. It's constantly on the move, and I think that when we stay still, I know that I was in danger of becoming complacent. Yes, what I do is I interview people around the world, so I am virtually everywhere, right? But when it comes down to my physical being, I had become a hermit, and which is something that's unhealthy for people like us, because we need to be amongst people, amongst energy. How can we shed light if we're, in our little dark hole? And so, there's that human side of us, especially as we get older, that, yes, we would like our nest. And I would love to have a nest to come back to. But it's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable here because it's time for you to move on. They haven't told me where I'm going or how I'm getting there. But apparently I have to uproot again.
Thank you for that courage.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have no option. They just come put things in place. Well, no, I'm going to take away that security and you're out there, mate, flapping in the wind again. And I say, that's all very well when I was younger, but as you get older...
The groundless...
It's true. It's true.
Yes.
It is.
Groundless.
It is just...
Yeah. And of course, when I'm out there doing it, I'm in complete, joy of it. It is that like, okay, where do you want me to go now? So it is very interesting, but I think that's what keeps it alive, and I think that's something we have to remember as the human beings that we are. Energy never sits still. We're not meant to sit still. We are constantly meant to be exploring because, as you said, Kimberly, you're an adventurer, an explorer by nature. And the more we're willing to explore, the more we expand. And the more we share that light, and the more light we consume as well. So don't be stagnant in your life, right? Be willing to flap those wings and see where they'll take you.
Yes. And I just have to share one little piece that came to, I just saw a flash, a vision really of the other day, picking up a very, very large conch shell. And just wanting to be with its beauty, I looked inside and there was a creature in it. And these creatures, they can, and I believe I'm not sure about the correct term, I think it might have been a crab, but they can at any time choose to upheave and walk out of their shell and opt for a different shell, even of a different size.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they will do this of their own decision, right? They'll just do it. And that's just wonderful to see in nature. We see examples of this groundlessness, this ever-shifting, ever-movingness of life. And we are, of course, we're part of nature, so we are doing the same. Nothing stays the same as
And how boring would that be?
Yeah, that's right. It's not exciting.
We get excited by watching the clouds going by, and I don't know about you, but I always see images in the clouds, and we love seeing the wind shake those leaves and just move life. We love the current and the water because it's constantly moving things. So we've got to realize we are made up of energy and water, and we are meant to physically move, emotionally move, and spiritually move. We're not designed to be stagnant. That's where we get trapped.
I think was it Einstein said so well that if we're not moving forward, we are not moving. We're moving backward.
Right.
Just as a metaphor.
Yes.
In that there is always expansion, and there's even more research done about the scale expanding cosmos.
Yeah.
which means everything's proportionately magnifying at every moment. So why not just jump on the cosmic train?
Exactly. Well, I mean, look at now they're thinking of adding, another, an astrology, that because of the way the time has changed, that we need a 13th one, not just 12. And so we have to look at, this Earth is constantly shifting, and its axle is constantly shifting, the universe is constantly shifting, and we've got to, stop being so fearful and shift along with it.
I was just going to say that's when, for a lot of people, even just touching, sort of a touch and go, if you touch into this concept of change and everything's changing, there rises up the fear. There can be fear that comes up immediately. So just recognizing that and being very loving at the same time when the fear rises up, just a lot of self-care, a lot of love, and tenderness to oneself.
Invite your courage in.
Yes.
That's when we discover how courageous we are. Again, look at the shows I've done of the people, of the things that they've gone through. And I look at their strength and their courage. And they did not find it alone. They found that strength and courage when they embraced that divine source. And look, what they've managed to overcome. I mean, we've got to realize we're not alone as human beings. We have that beautiful divine source, and we then find our own beautiful tribe here on this planet of people that are in that same like energy, or people that are wanting to enter that energy, and then that energy just expands in that love. And whenever we see somebody doing something horrible to another human being, I wish them heart and love. May the heart consciousness awaken. May they actually understand love, because you cannot harm another if you're in that space of love.
Yes, so well put.
And there again is that I love this kind of pause for the energy to to just ring out and to just absorb. And again, darkness cannot prevail or exist in light. So figuring out, I think, again, figuring out how quickly you can step into your own light or realign, let's call it that, realign yourself with your source, and doing that throughout your day, as you're driving, as you're going to the post office, as you're doing everything. And as you said, Sarah, even when you are witnessing or you are experiencing firsthand someone else's unconsciousness, hurt, pain, and all of that, but that you consciously choose, you make that choice to emerge and be in alignment with yourself, your own true light, and to do that as a habit, really,
I think also, I don't know whether you'll agree with me or not, Kimberly, but there's also something about silence where you actually step into the darkness. And I'm not talking about the darkness of repression and fear. I'm talking about that darkness of peace, where you can step into that darkness and you are that little ball of light that is kind of rejuvenating and listening and learning. And I used to be trapped in the darkness and, a lack of empathy, and just had apathy and just no connection to life. And that was a different type of darkness, and one that you can be afraid of. But when you step into that piece of darkness, and you see the light that you're meant to see in that, the clarity of your light in that, set in that background, it is truly very peaceful and beautiful. So I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but for me, it is a place of peace.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. I think as well that darkness is a great metaphor for simply the unknown. And since we're largely unconscious, and the ineffable of which we're embodying is largely unknown to us, stepping into darkness is an integral part, because it's the dismantling of the limited ways we're believing, holding to something, and allowing a spaciousness so that we can directly experience light in a greater potency and poignancy. I love in Psalm 19, verses 3 and 4, day unto day tells the story, and night unto night reveals the message.
Mm-hmm.
That in the very heart of dark, we find that the message, the divine message that's meant to be enlivened within us, it's revealed.
Yeah.
It's as though the veil can be pulled back and the immediacy can happen within us in a new way.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Absolutely. And it's that clarity is just so peaceful. It's so clear and so peaceful, you know. And again,
Yes.
we've got to stop looking at things that are coming in and as making human sense. Sometimes it makes soul sense. And the human understanding of that soul sense will come as you walk forward. But sometimes that clarity in the human sense isn't there, like, you know, I'm off nomading again. It makes spiritual sense completely, but the human side of it of how, what, where, when, doesn't yet. But it will be revealed as long as I trust the journey. And that's the thing, isn't it? Trusting the cosmic truth, the divine truth, for it will give you the clarity, the knowingness that you need when you need to know it. And that's stepping into that trust and faith without having to have everything labeled in front of you of this is it. You know, we don't need to always understand in the moment. It will unravel as time goes by.
Yes. I sense too, it's important to say here with that, Sarah, that if we are kind to ourselves and we reside or we endeavor to make the present moment our resting place.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we can, that we then find that this process, this trusting, feels a lot more like our friend rather than the shakiness of fear, you know. And I my sense is that is the correct way to say that, but really that the more that we can align ourselves with this current moment and celebrate what is, and that we don't get too caught up with.
Oh, we've lost her again. Come back.
She slipped.
She slipped by. Yes, a little, probably Othello moment.
Or a friend. That's
Oh, you came back. Good. We lost you for a moment.
Yay!
yes. So I was just saying that's the yes, right? That's the yes that we can give to ourselves is just that trust that comes with this current moment. So if ever we're finding it difficult, I think the trust, having that trust and faith that we can turn our attention to this current moment, and that's a great life skill. That's a great way to live, and it's a great way to say yes and to trust.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bringing the soul, the heart, the spirit into the equation, and not just the mind. And then you get the whole picture. But it will be revealed when the time is right. And that's one thing we have no control over, is it? We have no control over time. And so if we concentrate in living in our now, in our moment, in the gift of the present, we won't fret over time, because what needs to happen will happen when it needs to happen. But as human beings, we like to work by the clock and the time, and that can sometimes be our detriment.
I think the mind, I believe the mind, in my work with Othello, most especially, I've just noticed, even with myself, management of one's mind can be a huge barrier to living in this current moment. And we just find suffering. I think that if we step off of, if we stray too far from our sense of presence, our oneness, our sense of ourselves, that we find ourselves in past or in future, or we're battling with our mind quite often, or it just won't stop. We just have no sense of, we have no ability to be silent or be with ourselves. And we look for distraction, I think, because of that. I mean, I'm saying things I think that Kimberly probably experienced very much firsthand, because it's my understanding that when you're in silence for long periods of time, the mind is, I mean, you're with your mind. It's there. You're very intensely aware of thought and time and the comings and goings of the mind. And you have a lot of awareness that can be built there.
Yeah, I think what was wonderful, there were so many things I loved about living primarily in silence. And one of the things I was looking forward to was the direct encounter of myself. Mm. And when you have no other option than to encounter yourself, because we can have little ways we distract away, even if it's turning on the radio, to ease the discomfort that can come when we're in contact with the uncomfortable parts of ourselves. But on the positive side, when your back is against the wall and you want to have peace, inevitably you learn what works and what doesn't work. And force never works, because that's the mind trying to force the mind. So ultimately, it's really the gentle, unconditional acceptance, allowance, and graciousness of the mind and the heart, because within the emotional body, we carry so many things that will take us in so many directions that are not ultimately peace-giving. And all of that comes to the fore when you're living in silence and you have no other choice. Right. And eventually, even just for the sake of sanity, you're like, okay, I'm just have to really let this one go, like really surrender.
Yes.
or
a hard one for people to do, but that's what you have to do. It's like, okay, I hand it up to you. I've got no control here. I surrender.
Surrender.
Yes.
Well, you know what? We are coming to...
Tiger. I was just going to say Paper Tiger comes to mind, with like the surrender of our mind-made pain and suffering. So yes, I chuckle at that, though. I really appreciate what you just shared, Kimberly. That's just beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, if we get out of our own way, we actually are incredibly awesome creatures. We have so much capability. And when we, tap into our beautiful divine partnership and be one, then we truly understand what our purpose and calling here is in life, and then our contribution, and realize that our light is very, very significant in that collective field of beautiful flowers, and we all have a role to play, and it's not dictated by what others want from you. It's dictated by what your purpose is and your divine DNA. When we tap into that, then we can set ourselves free. So we have come to the end of our time here. So I am going to ask each one of you to give your site if you have anything coming up that you wish to share. And Kimberly, we'll go with you first.
Yes, so my website is KimberlyBraun.com. My email is Kimberly@KimberlyBraun.com. I am going to be in D.C., and if you'd like to connect with me there, I'll be leading a day retreat called Arise, My Beloved, and Come. I'm going to be starting a teleseminar class on some mystical poems and going to Spain next July to break open some mystical poetry of Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross.
Nice.
So if you want to have more information about that, please contact me, because it is going to be really juicy.
Definitely. And Kimberly Braun is BRAUN, just for people to know. So KimberlyBraun.com.
Thank you. Yes.
And yes. Christina.
So exciting. So new offerings, yes. So you can find myself and, of course, my guide, Guru, Angel, call her what you will. She is amazing, and she heals not just physically. We're talking from all different kinds of affliction of mind, body, spirit. She's just a wonderful guide, and you can find her at athela.org. That's the organization that we have, and under her direction, of course, we are now on our Latin American tour. We are in the Yucatan Peninsula, and this summer we're having a series of live events. We just got done wrapping up with our Hawaii tour. You can see that on the website at athela.org. And these next events, we have them in Merida, We have them in Cancun and also Playa del Carmen. So if you're on vacation or if you're thinking of vacationing this summer, this might be a great opportunity for you to meet with Othello and just sit in her energy, which in and of itself is beautiful and uplifting. And these series of events that are coming up, they're called, she's named them aptly, and this is amazing, this In the Name of Love is the series that we're doing this summer. And my website, you can find me, I'll spell it, it's athella.org. It's ATHELLA.org.
Excellent. And of course, right here on selfdiscoveryradio.com, all you have to do is put in their names in the search bar, and their own page comes up with all the other shows they've done with us. They have done other shows with other people on roundtables, plus, had their own individual shows. And I really do invite you to come and listen to them, because there's so much, both of them, that can share with you and teach you and illuminate you and, take the journey, because they've both got so much to give, as well as the people that they're also doing shows with. So all you do in the search engine at selfdiscoveryradio.com is put Kimberly Brown or Christina Hill, and their own identity comes up with everything there. It's been wonderful having you back here again, ladies. This has been a divine experience. And I thank you both.
It certainly has.
Yes. So just, a quick closing from each of you. Kimberly?
May life inspire you, all of you. May you feel yourself breathing the presence and being breathed. May you be consoled to that degree.
Beautiful. Christina?
We are accompanied by and always attended to by light. And there are light beings. You are a light being. There are light beings around you right now. And source, light, life, whatever it is you call it, take a break, take a pause, put down everything and just breathe and be with what's around you, because, life is here for you. Life says yes to you. And all that is required is for you to be aware of it, to align yourself with it. And this show is a great way to just remind yourself to do that. Thank
Well, thank you both very much as well. It's been absolutely lovely to have you both here. Always enjoy both of you. It's such beautiful, pure spirits. And, I know that whoever listens to this show will be uplifted, but I also know that the energy in which this show has been conducted today has already got out there and reached people. They're being touched. They're not quite sure by whom, but they're feeling that awakening. And it's a very beautiful gift to give. So thank you very much, Kimberly and Christina, for your wonderful wisdom, knowledge, and love. And love.
Many blessings. Thank you, Sarah, for all you are and do in the world.
Oh, bless you.
Loving light to both of you.
And you too, think Christina.
Such beautiful light, brilliant light that both of you share. So I'm so humbled, and thank you all for listening as well. Thank you.
Well, folks, it's a beautiful story here, and one that we hope that really wraps its arms around you. And remember, I promise you, it may be cliche, but love does heal all. Welcome to love. Bye for now. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.